Titles, they mean a lot here in the United Kingdom, across the Commonwealth, really across the world. Titles can do so much to change people's perception of you, can't you? When you think about it, if you go in somewhere and somebody's announced as Lady so-and-so or Lord so-and-so, you kind of think, oh wow, really, what are they? And of course, titles can be bought. There are certain titles, though, that simply cannot be bought, and they are royal titles. They are passed down by the monarch to, of course, various members of the family. One of the biggest fights going on right now, as one can imagine, is the use of the titles from the former royals known as Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. She famously said it meant nothing to her, while he, of course, is born prince and, will always remain a born prince, whereas, maybe in the future, those titles could simply be removed. Something, of course, Meghan wouldn't be too pleased about. Which got me thinking really about where are we now with titles and succession? Who gets what and why? It's a fascinating topic really, because some automatically just be given to said people on the royal family, or indeed others are simply bestowed upon it by that monarch. So today I thought we'd take a quick look at exactly where we are now, sadly following the terrible demise of our wonderful monarch of 70 years, Queen Elizabeth II. As you know, she openly spoke about some of her personal thoughts about how she saw the monarchy shaping up further down the 21st century. So today, some of these people who've been well bestowed titles may shock you, while others you'll be thinking, really? As ever, take a quick look. So many changes recently with the royal titles that have occurred since the sad passing of our wonderful Queen, Queen Elizabeth II. So this is what the line of succession looked like just prior to the death of the Queen, and this is what it now looks like today. The most important change is, of course, that Prince Charles is now King Charles III. Now, I don't know if you know this, but when he first ascended to the throne, there was some speculation as to what he may call himself, because I don't know if you're also aware that when you become monarch, you can pick your own title, your own name. Now, the most favoured name, obviously, was that of George, and a lot of people felt that Charles may go down this particular route. Because you see, the Queen's father was actually called Albert, but he decided to call himself George. He felt it had more of a regal ring to it, as did his younger brother. So obviously people would speculate and think, well, what would Charles call himself? Well, rightly so, Charles has stuck to a modern era, and seemingly he wants to be known as King Charles III. Big debate, wasn't there, about the Queen and what she said regarding Camilla. And as you know, earlier this year when she made that televised address, she also pointed out that she wished now for everybody to get behind Camilla, and that in the future, in the fullness of time, she would be known as the Queen Consort. This really ruled out the idea of exactly what she could call herself upon, of course, King Charles ascending to the throne. Now, there's a good reason behind this, in fact, because a lot of people say, well, why isn't she known as Queen Camilla? Well, there's a difference between the type of queen, you see. For instance, Queen Elizabeth was born into the role, and she was the role, she wasn't the second. So the bottom line is with Camilla, she is the wife of the monarch, known obviously as the Queen Consort. So many things changed the moment the Queen passed, including the fact that Charles's very firstborn child, Prince William, became the Duke of Cornwall in England and the Duke of Rothesay in Scotland, because those titles are automatically given to any male who was first in line to the throne. Not bad, eh? He already had the title of the Duke of Cambridge, so now he's a Duke 3 times over. Yeah. And in England, he's the Duke of Cornwall, Cambridge. Cornwall, of course, becomes first because it's the high title, and then his wife, the Duchess of Cornwall, and Cambridge. The Rothesay titles are only used when they're visiting or living up in Scotland. Now, the day after the sad Queen's death, of course, King Charles bestowed upon William the additional title of the Prince of Wales. Now, this is something that did not happen automatically. The king actually had to bestow it upon him. Traditionally, however, since the year of 1301, the title has almost always been given upon the heir apparent to the English or later British throne. You see, it's just steeped in history, isn't it? And nothing is really left to chance. That's what I love about the Royal British history. Now, because William, of course, is the brand new Prince of Wales, that meant that his wife Catherine became the brand new Princess of Wales, the title Princess of Wales simply being a courtesy title. The last person who was to use that title was of course the stunningly beautiful and mother of William and Harry, the late Princess Diana. Now technically, I don't know if you also know this, but Camilla had the right to use it as well, but she chose not to prior to becoming Queen Consort. She was known, as you know, as the Duchess of Cornwall. Previously, William and Kate's 3 children used the phrase of Cambridge after their names. Now they will use the phrase of Wales. You see, it's all very confusing. Their places in the line of succession have also moved up a notch, with William's son George in particular now being second in line to the throne instead of third. Now a lot of people wanted to know, well, what happened to Prince Harry? Why was he then not knocked up a notch, as it were? Well, it's interesting to note that he did move up from 6 to 5 in the line of succession, but both he and Meghan did not receive any new titles from the king. We're thinking that the second born always receives the title of the Duke of York. This is simply not always the case, and now obviously it's held by someone else, and currently that title is being held by the King's brother, the part-time royal, some might say, Prince Andrew, so obviously it's unavailable. Now, this caused a lot of debate also upon the Queen's passing, because a lot of people are unsure exactly where they stand with the titles from Harry and Meghan. Well, obviously they so far still get to keep their titles, but their children, Archie and Lilibet Windsor, are now officially prince and princesses, and they can use those titles should they so wish. However, in order to be a British prince or princess, one has to be either the child of a monarch, a grandchild in the male line, or a child in the heir's eldest son. Previously, William and Catherine's children met that requirement, but Harry and Meghan's did not. However, they are the grandchildren of the king in the male line, and they are automatically prince and princesses. Whether or not their parents, Harry and Meghan, decide to use those titles remains to be seen. As we now know, that's up for some serious debate, simply because, we found out in that documentary that they did offer to relinquish those titles, but as I pointed out in a previous video, that seemingly did now not stand up and seemingly was not necessarily the case. And other people like Sophie and Edward, the Earl and Countess of Wessex. Well, as you know, he's currently known as the Earl of Wessex, but it has long been thought that he may have been given the title of the Duke of Edinburgh. The title was previously held by the King's father, Prince Philip, but it automatically passed to the King, King Charles, after Philip died. However, King Charles apparently wants to keep the title back in the moment. We're not quite sure exactly what he's going to do with it. It's going to be interesting. A lot of people would like this to be bestowed upon Edward, simply because, he's done a lot of great work in the very much same tradition as his late father, of course, the Duke of Edinburgh, as has Sophie, his beautiful wife, who's very, very, shall we say, forceful in the world of charity, knows exactly how to make that particular charity zing, attends all those meetings and pushes forward, making sure that the message is about the charity and not about her. I think they would make an excellent partnership for, of course, carrying the name of the Duke of Edinburgh forward, but it remains to be seen if that does actually happen. And finally, what about the ever-fragrant Princess Anne, the Princess Royal? The King's only sister is currently known as this Princess Royal, a title traditionally given to the monarch's eldest daughter. But again, a person can only receive the title if it is available. For instance, when Queen Elizabeth was a very young girl, she was never known as the Princess Royal, even though she was the eldest daughter of the King. This is because during the entire time of course, that king's reign, the title was held by his sister, Mary. Now, sadly, if Princess Anne was to pass away anytime soon, the title would become vacant because Charles simply does not have any daughters to pass it to. However, if Anne was to die when William was king, then that particular title would be then bestowed upon William's daughter, Charlotte. And finally, let's take our attentions to Prince Louis. What about him? Would he receive a title? Well, in the future, possibly, you know. We're not quite sure exactly what title he may be given. People are speculating that he could simply become the Prince of York, as this title has traditionally been given to the second-born sons. And unless the king decides to strip Andrew of his title and give it to Harry, then the next person likely to get it will probably be Louis. Some time, of course, after William is king. So much for watching that short film all about exactly where we are today with the titles. I hope I explained it in the simplest of terms. You could get lost with all of the intricacies, let me tell you, about what goes on and who gets what and why and all that sort of stuff. And as I said at the start of this video, it always goes back to one thing, doesn't it? Titles can do a lot for you. They can open doors, as of course the former royals Harry and Meghan have found out. In many respects, though, they can shut them too, because a lot of people only want to be associated with the high end, the top tier of the British royalty. And seemingly, even for some-time royals, the shine can simply fade quite rapidly. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.